Welcome to Off the Roll. I'm your host, Troy Hirschman. Well, it's Final Four weekend for college basketball, and a lot of people are getting excited about this. We've kind of got some great Final Fours for the men and the women. But I had my own shining moment this week when I got to talk to our guest, Dr. Tom Weidner. Dr. Weidner is a member of the National Athletic Trainers Association Hall of Fame, the Indiana Athletic Trainers Association Hall of Fame, and the Golden Pinnacle Award winner for the Great Lakes Athletic Trainers Association. Dr. Weidner is currently the George and Francis Ball Distinguished Professor of Athletic Training and Chair of the School of Kinesiology at Ball State University. Tom has a unique story to tell. It's a really interesting story of his pathway in athletic training, and we get right to it when we get to talk to him about it. So we're going to go off the roll with Dr. Tom Weidner. We're going off the roll this morning with NATA Hall of Famer Dr. Tom Weidner. We're in actually Dr. Weidner's office. This is the first in-person podcast I've done in a while. So, Dr. Weidner, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you very much, Troy. I'm honored to be selected for your podcast.
Well, thank you for coming on, making time to do this, because your story, I think, is amazing, and we're gonna hear all about it today, and kind of hopefully what you're up to here in the future with stuff. But
I'll try to keep it amazing. I'll embellish as much as I can.
Embellishing is just fine for this. It makes for a more interesting story for sure. So tell me, as I've asked all the guests to kind of get started with, tell me how you got started in athletic training.
Well, as a freshman in high school, Tinley Park High School in Illinois, the PE instructor.
So Tinley Park's like the south side of Chicago, correct?
Yes, it is part of the suburban megapolis thing, but at that point when I lived there, the suburbs hadn't quite reached that far south, but certainly they have now. So during a PE class, the teacher was just making an announcement. He was needing a manager for the varsity basketball team, which he was also the varsity basketball coach. So I approached him afterwards and expressed an interest, and that day, next day, whatever it was, I went to my first basketball practice, and I guess I figured out some of my roles and responsibilities, and I remember cleaning basktballs with a Cramer, I want to call it Kleenex, but that doesn't make sense. But
I'm trying to think too what that was.
It made them slick as all heck. It really did.
So their turnover ratio jumped immediately for that practice.
Oh, unbelievable. Maybe I put on too much product. I don't remember. But I remember keeping stats on the bench, and was starting to get pretty adept at that and enjoying it. And then halfway into the season, mid-year then, we moved to Park Forest, and so I had to transfer schools, of course, and went to Park Forest High School starting halfway through my freshman year, and not that remainder of that year, but for my sophomore year at Park Forest at Rich East High School, which has closed since.
Oh, wow, okay.
Which is unusual, but I approached the football coach and expressed interest in becoming a manager, and he was, very supportive. Yeah, great. And so kind of moved into the responsibilities of a manager, and we can all appreciate what those are.
Right.
But into that season, he asked if I would be interested in and you probably heard this from many others, is Cramer first aider course.
Yeah.
It's a self-instruction. There's course for high schoolers.
Yep.
Oh yeah. He gave me the information about it, probably with a first aider newsletter is all it was at that point. Now it's probably a great big magazine with appropriate centerfolds and everything else. Who knows?
Appropriate centerfolds, of Tough Skin. There's a can of Tough Skin.
Yes.
Only things that athletic trainers would appreciate.
Right, right. So I enjoyed the self-instruction. I enjoyed the content, what I mean to say, and I got passionate about it in a hurry. And I ended up buying books. One was a book called The Knee, clever title. I forget who was publishing that. But I also got a Claflin Arnheim book. I had a number of books, and I would actually, through the remainder of high school, carry them with me so that at the end of class, sometimes there's some odd minutes, I've finished any homework, and I'd pull out a book.
Yeah.
And I would look through that.
So were there any? So when was this? Late 70s, early 80s?
This was closer to early mid 70s.
Okay, yeah. So you're in the south side of Chicago, and I think about this a little bit, and I'm getting ready to. Oh, I got to reach out to Snowball, but one of the podcasts I'm going to do with Glenn is talking about he and Hoove on their journeys with physical therapy services. So
right.
That's kind of in that wheelhouse of when all that was kind of starting up a little bit too. And I mean, were there any athletic trainers in the area that you could kind of reference to talk to? Did you know anything? Anybody around there? Did anybody say, "Oh yeah, this guy's over here" or something?
Good question. No.
Okay.
I was unaware of anyone.
So you really were on your own then?
Yeah, and I went to the Cramer summer camps 3 times.
So where was that at?
Eastern twice and Western once.
Okay.
So Duke LaRue and Denny Eaton are the 2 names I remember, and some others.
Yeah.
I met Bob Benke a few times during those courses and so forth. And it was kind of fun, especially with Benke. Our paths kept crisscrossing.
Yeah.
And I don't know I'm sure I talked about, do you remember me as a little high school punk? I'm sure I brought it up.
Yeah.
And so I actually built my own athletic training room. It was a storage room. It's bigger than storage per se, but it was on the smaller side, and it had indoor-outdoor carpeting in it, which was in horrendous shape, and just miscellaneous junk.
Yeah.
And so I asked, maybe it was the football coach or the athletics director, I don't know, but it got approved, and so I believe it was the year between, between sophomore and junior year, that summer I started ripping it all up and using this, those big floor buffers, that had a heavy as all get out.
Yeah.
And man, I couldn't operate that thing for nothing, because all of that glue was. And we soaked it with ammonia water. I guess that's the best decision we knew how to make at that time as young kids. I had a friend helping me.
I mean, it's amazing. Here's a football coach, athletic director, and you're in high school, and they're like, "Here you go, go at it." I mean,
and that's exactly what an open, supportive, unheard of. So I remember after struggling a bit with getting that glue off the floor, I asked the football coach, who happened to be around in the locker room area, and I remember him getting whipped around like a rag doll too. So.
You didn't feel so bad about that, did
There was a technique to that darn thing, and some 100-pound woman who just knew how to finesse it just right could handle it. But I ended up getting a couple of tables. The story on those is it just happened, and this is summer, and it's quiet around the school, and my friend and I were walking down a hallway, and it happened to be that all of the tables for one of the science labs were sitting out in the hallway because they were cleaning and waxing the classroom floor.
Yeah.
So this seemed like an opportune moment. And he and I took it, and we're kind of tiptoeing down the hallway with a table and peering around the corner and tiptoeing some more, and up the stairs we went into the boys' locker room and into the new athletic training space, and then had the guts to go do it again because we wanted to. So here we go, the whole tiptoe, peer around the corner, and Troy, no one said a thing. Now, someone had to notice there's two tables. I know, and they can't be cheap, they had to be missed, and no one asked, where did these tables come from in this athletic training room now? So we got some crappy padding and padded them, then got some cover, stapled that on, and then we built two really shabby, really bad looking cabinets that we put on the wall, but we did paint the place. And so we had a key to it. You had to padlock it.
Right.
And there was an occasion where the wrestling coach wanted to get something out of the athletic training room. I wasn't readily available. It wasn't hard to find me. I was probably at basketball or football practice or something. So he took a shot put, and he just destroyed the whole thing.
Oh my gosh.
He got in there. But I went to that athletic training room in the morning. True story. I would leave at my house at 7 o'clock. I could walk.
Right.
And I'd eat a Pop-Tart on the way to Ritchie's High School. And I read about hygiene and cleanliness and so on. So I would get a wet towel, and I would wipe down the surfaces. There were windowsills. There was, the ledge around the door. There was a bulletin board that I would put educational type things on. Yeah. And I would wipe off the top edge of that every day. I mean, that's crazy, but I would do that every day. Started keeping records, 3x5 note card. This was stuff I was reading in the first aider.
Right, yeah.
At this point, and picking up at the Cramer summer camps and all that kind of thing.
Yeah, that's and I can relate because that's kind of how I got my start, and I remember reading those first aiders and okay, this is what I'm supposed to do next, and not having a whole lot of direction in that, and I certainly didn't. The little athlete training room that I had that the school had given me had a couple of tables in it, so I didn't have to acquire a couple of tables. But the story that I tell was that I had those two tables that I had, and then between I had a cart, and on one side I had a big jug of skin lube, and the other side I had a big jug of atomic or Cramer G-Zig atomic bomb. I forget what it was. Yeah. And I was doing something, and I had a football player come in and go, "Hey, I've got some chafing. What do I put on it?" And I just kind of pointed over to that table. And I said, there's some stuff right there. No. You can use that stuff over there. And he wasn't smart. I thought he was smart enough to know the difference between the two. He was not. No. And I ended up having to call his mom. Oh my! To come pick him up because he was trying to wash it off in the shower, which made it worse. He was hurting. Yeah.
Nice play.
and so, I mean, so I learned, like, don't put the Cramer G-Zig next to the skin loop. Move it someplace else.
We had, we bought tough skin in gallon cans and got spray bottles and would pour tough skin into the spray bottle. But the spray bottle had a wide spray and was a mess. So spray.
Yeah.
So we had to tape towels to the floor because it would all end up down there as well, and replace the towels from time to time, not as often as we should. And, all that kind of thing. I remember the first time someone got hurt, I'd gone to one camp, and now I was, I completed that course, and football coach was picking up on my commitment to it and was supportive. And so the first time I had my badge and my Cramer student camp under my belt, first football game was on the road, and someone got hurt. And I just kind of stayed on the sideline, and he said, "Tom, get out there." And I went out there, and he followed about 30 seconds later. But he gave me that moment.
Yeah.
Just a punk kid, but he gave me that moment. I'll never forget that.
Yeah. Do you remember what it was?
No. Lower extremity injury. That's all I remember.
Yeah. I mean, it's again the amount of self-direction and
support, just strategic support from a kind person. That individual, Randy Hundley was his name.
Yeah.
He was just well suited to be in a high school and mentor kids and support kids and guide kids, football team.
Yeah.
His classes, whatever it might be.
So did your parents were they ever like, "Tom, where's this going?" I mean, you're doing all this stuff, you're spending all this time.
I don't think so. Of course, my dad would get home from work at 7 o'clock, and so I made sure I was home at 7 o'clock at night. So that's a 12-hour day.
Yeah.
As a high schooler.
Yeah.
And then homework after that, and I'm sure they were, at least he's developing, growing, committed to something that has, some kind of.
He's not in jail.
He's not in jail.
Right.
Now, the other person that was helpful too, though, was Steve Fisher. And he was Michigan, San Diego State, I think it was, Coach Fisher.
Really?
Yes. He was my basketball coach.
No
I was
way.
Manager, student trainer.
Oh my goodness.
For 3 years.
Wow.
And sometimes he could be a real pissant. But underneath it, he was like Coach Hundley. He was supportive, encouraging, gave me, in horseback riding, you keep the reins loose and give the horse its head and let it make decisions.
Right.
And so he gave me my head. He just let me take my own path, reined me in once in a while, but lots of stories with Coach Fisher that were he was always I loved basketball, and obviously I had enough vision where I loved to shoot.
Right.
I didn't have peripheral vision, so I couldn't really interact in up and down and play defense, but I loved to just shoot baskets.
Yeah.
I shot baskets by the hour, and so he saw that, and he said, "Weidner, come over here." And so it's at the end of basketball practice kind of thing. And, they were going to have to do some kind of suicide runs or something. And, but he said, if you make, here, put me on the free throw line.
Yeah.
And everybody was on the sides, and, okay, you make 5 of these, they don't have to run. So I hit the first 4. Oh my God, this guy's gonna pull this off. And number 5, it bounced out. And I remember getting so mad that I slapped the floor with my hand And damn, did that hurt. I mean,
Yeah.
I was mad. Because I just wanted to. But there were other times where that he, again, challenged half court. Team was having a break.
Yeah.
Why? Come on. So, best out of 3 from the half court. So he shot his 3. Maybe one went in.
Yeah.
And I kid you not, all 3 went in. And so this was Tom's on everybody's shoulders at this point.
Yeah.
And so he gave me his clipboard, his whistle, and he said, "Okay, you're in charge." So I blew the whistle, and I said, "Practice is over."
That's amazing. I mean, were you watching like during the early '90s and when they were with the Fab Five and stuff?
Absolutely.
And going, you knew you'd seen him as a young coach, a young man, and you're
Yes.
like, or did you notice like, yeah, we ran that play in high school?
Well, actually, they came and played Ball State. You might remember.
Yes,
that.
I do remember that.
And
Yeah.
I reached Coach Fisher before that, and my son Andy was a huge Michigan fan.
Yeah.
So I've got to see Coach Fisher just to visit with him. So I did during their shoot around, and then the next day or later that night, whatever it was, we made arrangements where I would meet with him after the game with Andy.
Yeah.
So Andy was going to get to see him, person to person.
Yeah.
And he said, "Someone will come and get you." So I was sitting in the arena. I forget. It was behind the benches, somewhere up there.
Yeah.
Not real close, but somewhere up there. And now the game's over, and the place is emptying, and still nobody came and got me. I don't know how this whole thing was supposed to work. And we're just sitting and sitting. And right when I was really getting close to giving up, here comes somebody. "Coach Fisher's ready to see you." Oh, okay. So we got escorted across the floor to their locker room.
Right.
He was standing out in the hallway, and I got to introduce Andy to him. And Andy had a Michigan hat,
Yeah.
and he signed it. And to this day, that hat is actually hanging from his high school photo that you would take at graduation. It's hanging on that photo because that's how much that hat was high value.
Yeah.
It was
Oh, yeah.
High value experience to him as a big Michigan fan.
Yeah. Yeah. That's crazy. I mean, and that's what it's these are, this podcast has kind of brought some of these stories out. The first podcast I did with Glenn Snow, he actually saw, he was the assistant athletic trainer in Washington with Bud in the early 70s and watched the national championship match versus when Dan Gable was a senior. Dan Gable,
yes.
Iowa coach, it was undefeated in high school and college, except that he lost that match to a University of Washington wrestler, and Glenn was there, and I go, "Holy smokes! How come you never told this story before?" Actually, you can look up the wrestling match on YouTube, and I sent it to him, and he goes, "I haven't seen that in years," and so it's that's awesome. I'm glad you. That's awesome.
One thing too, last about Coach Fisher was the day that I was inducted into the NATA Hall of Fame. The athletic trainer at San Diego State made a point of coming up to me after the ceremony, and he introduced himself, and he said, "I have a message from Coach Fisher." Oh, wow! And Coach Fisher wishes or extends his heartfelt congratulations.
Yeah.
And wow, that was a real cool moment too.
Well, I mean, again, it just goes to show you that the whether or not you think you're making an impression on people, you are, and you always have to kind of keep that. Whether you're a student athletic trainer in high school working with a coach that obviously you had no idea of the ranks that he was going to rise to at that point. But you still did your job and had your experience and stuff, and yet years later, he never forgot, and that's what's really cool about it. And you hope that you have those moments along your career to extend that. And That's really cool. That's really cool. So what? You've obviously done all this stuff in high school. What kind of was your next steps in the aspect of continuing on? Were you at a crossroads? Did you know that athlete training is what you wanted to do going forward? Were there other things in your mind that you thought, I'm going to go do this, or kind of explain to me what your next steps were after high school?
Sure. I had no intention to do anything but athletic training. So my dad took me to Eastern, visited with Denny Eaton and facility tour and all that.
Yeah.
And then we went to Southern Illinois and met with Doc Spackman and facilities and all. And I really liked SIU.
Right.
And my dad enjoyed meeting Doc, and they had a good interaction. I did, and so forth. So I chose Southern Illinois, and there was no scholarship money, obviously, but he all but guaranteed me that I could get student work wages, which I did, and it wasn't long into two-a-days that he came up to me and said, everything's squared away for student work, and he connected all the dots to get that started, which built over the years. So by the time I was graduating as a senior, they had raises, incremental raises by how many hours.
Right.
And so, that turned out to be a decent amount of support by the time I was in my senior year.
Yeah. So what were you doing then for student work? Were you doing stuff with football? Were you doing...
I was working with football as a student trainer.
Right.
And for my freshman year, and I'm getting paid for it.
Right, yeah.
And then that freshman year, I forget what I was doing at winter sport time, but come baseball, here's a true story. So baseball was a pretty strong program at that time. And so now getting deep into the spring semester, they're doing very well, and Dr. Spackman approached me and said, would you like to travel with baseball to the conference playoffs? And I thought, yeah, sure, that's great. And that was the beginning of Doc Spackman really kind of putting his foot down. He didn't want to do all the travel.
Right, yeah.
And this became a thing as I progressed through my undergrad years. But at any rate, so I went with the team, hadn't worked with them at all, not one baseball game.
Yeah.
Now I'm going to conference playoffs. They won, so now we're into the tournament regionals. They won, and now and I remember we played at Oklahoma State for the regionals, and the Omaha baseball field was the Creighton's home field, which also turned out to be where the World Series was played.
Right.
But we advanced all the way to the World Series. So there's, 8 teams, I guess, Troy.
Yeah.
Okay, so all 7 of those other teams had a staff. Here I am, a student trainer. I'm 18 years old still. And I'm in charge of a World Series baseball team. And so that was quite an experience. We got lots of meal money, but we never had to spend a dime because it's, picnic here, dinner here, you know how it goes. So I brought back a nice chunk of cash from that trip, I remember.
Yeah.
So that's a freshman. That's how I ended up my freshman year, was going to the College World Series. But again, Doc Spackman, next year, he's complaining about travel. So I was assigned to basketball at that point, my sophomore year. It started with football, October 15th, man. I circled that day, first day of basketball practice. So down to the arena I went. So it's starting to get chilly. Now I'm in
inside.
Shorts and short
You're
sleeves.
inside.
Yeah, I'm inside. And feeling pretty smug about it, I'm sure. and but I was exclusive, signed all travel, all practices. I was it, but Doc Spackman was getting pressure to travel, at least.
Yeah.
But he didn't want to. And the person who was pressuring him, our athletics director, was Gail Sayers at that time.
Oh my God! Okay.
A few times.
Yeah.
And I interacted with Gail Sayers. He treated me very poorly.
Yeah.
I mean, he's a legend, and on and on and on. But he did. During the summers, I was a student janitor. That's how I met Lauren.
Yeah.
She was a student janitor.
Okay.
And in the athletics director office, there's that famous photo, Brian Piccolo and Gail Sayers just hanging on the wall. So,
Yeah.
I would look at that every once in a while as I clean up his office and all those kinds of things. And but he and Sayers, but Doc Spackman and Gail Sayers did not get along either.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Probably. There's a little bit of George Hallis probably involved with that. I mean, with that administrative perspective. I mean, I heard those. That was the one thing at St. Joe's. I heard those. The school nurse Dixie Green was still there when Sean and I were there, and then when I was there during that whole time that the Bears were at training camp there.
Oh, that's right.
And she would tell stories about Alice, rant and raven, and the time that Butkus they were I guess they were in this dorm room. They were doing bed checks, and the assistant coach was doing bed checks. Butkus thought was a little excessive in his bed check style, so they had a pillowcase and they're going to throw it over his head and kind of spin him around and rough him up a little bit, and they did it, and it turned out when they pulled the pillowcase off, it was Coach Hallis. It wasn't the assistant coach. So I could see where maybe that was going on, but again, sometimes, as we've learned, sometimes the best athletes are not necessarily the best administrators. So
the student janitor gig in the summers, football coach's office, they could be working in there at times. The head football coach, I almost remembered his name. Anyway, it might occur to me.
Yeah.
But he was idiosyncratic, and he was a born-again Christian. He did not hide that, and it got more and more pronounced in terms of him being open about it as the seasons went on. But and I did learn from a couple of the players that at night meetings, there was occasions where he would pass a photo, where he got it, I don't know, of me around, and they would have prayer time. And at that point, I was starting to lose my vision, even more pronounced. And so, whoa, that's kind of a nice gesture, but as a kid, college, I don't know. So I'm cleaning the offices one summer, and there he is, Ray Dempsey.
Yeah.
And I mean, he got to a point where he was on the 700 club.
Oh my goodness!
As a football coach. And Angels greet him at night. They're hovering above his house when he gets home from practice. I'm not kidding you. And so there he is, and now he wants to lay hands on me. And what am I supposed to do?
Yeah.
Probably a junior in college and intimidated as head football coach and that. So he laid hands on me and he prayed. And I was closed my eyes. He said, "Okay, open your eyes." And he said, "Can you see any better?" I said, "No, Coach."
I hate to disappoint you.
Yeah. Coach didn't work that time.
Well, at least he didn't hit you in the forehead and make you collapse. He just laid hands on you. Well, I guess the intentions were good.
They were good, and I received them in the spirit. Excuse the pun that they were given.
Oh my goodness. So you're at you're at SIU. You're obviously working as an athletic trainer and stuff. You meet your future wife at that point in time. Anything that was memorable from a standpoint of athletic training wise? Did you cross? When was your first NATA convention?
I went to the one in St. Louis. I was maybe senior college or my first year as a graduate assistant.
Yeah.
So somewhere in that timeline.
Yeah.
So that would have been like 80, something like that, plus or minus a year type thing.
And so you did your GA at SIU then, correct?
Right.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So what were you assigned to as a graduate assistant then?
I was with basketball.
Okay.
And worked, of course, football. About the same gig I was doing before, but no baseball.
Right.
So, by the way, after that freshman year where I went to the World Series, so my sophomore year, I was again assigned to basketball for the first time, which I stayed with for 4 years, and baseball for those 3 years I had left as an undergrad. So Troy, I went back to back the most travel seasons.
Oh yeah.
For 3 years.
So academically, I mean, how we hear students today like, oh I'm so tough. Oh I got to do this. I got to do that. I've got this Zoom meeting. I've got my classes online. Blah blah blah. Whatever. I'm not saying it's not tough, but you're trying to do really like a full-time athletic trainer and then some, and going to class. And
I don't. When I understand that there was a different mindset, mentality about it all. Troy, I remember when I was working on my doctorate at SIU. So I ended up on staff full time.
Right.
As an assistant athletic trainer. I was into whatever second or third year of my doctorate. And Troy, I had enough vision to read if I kind of blew up. So I would take an article and just either make sure the print was real dark or I kind of magnified it somehow.
Right.
Blah, blah. But I was reading an article with one hand, and we did a lot of ice massage.
Right.
And ice massaging the shoulder with the other. Read, ice massage, read. I mean, that's never thought anything about it. Now, I knew it was a commitment. Obviously, I still remember it.
Yeah.
But, my world wasn't coming to an end. It's just the way it was.
Right. Yeah. No, I think that's the thing is that you had to fit it in where you could fit it in at and still get it done. I think that's as you've tried to impress upon your kids and as a dad trying to impress upon mine is that if you want to be successful, you've got to be willing to work a little bit to get there. And for me, it was on the farm and watching my dad and my mom do stuff that I'm still amazed by the fact that they still pulled it off and sent 3 kids to college.
Sure.
And did all that. But that's what it was. I mean, they just did it and didn't think anything about it. And that's what it was. And it sounds like that's what you were doing. You didn't know any different. You just knew that you had to get it done.
And I never considered the athletic training part of my day as work.
Yeah.
It was never entered my mind that was work. So that also helped, that kind of mindset. I enjoyed it. That was my purpose. That's what I wanted to do. And, that was my whole flow. It was never work.
Yeah. So you're assistant athlete trainer, getting your PhD at Southern Illinois. What was the point what was the next step after that? What was the next opportunity?
Well, so the year I became men's assistant athletic trainer, I was very clear because I was invited for that position, and I said I was losing more vision, Troy. So I said I'm okay with this. I was appreciative, thankful, but I've got to stay in the athletic training room. You know, don't put me out in a practice,
Right.
travel, all of that. And they rearranged some other assignments and and there was. And so I got to have just roles in the athletic training room for a year, but that was a short-term arrangement for them and for me.
Yeah.
And I was finishing my doctorate, which I did not finish during that year, and knew that I had to find an environment like that which was going to be contained. And my doctorate my emphasis was in health promotion, wellness, you know.
Yeah.
So I wanted to combine athletic training with health promotion, wellness programming, sports medicine clinics. We're starting to do that, and my
Right.
dissertation was on that topic, and that's how I met Hoover up in Chicago at a GLATA meeting. I was doing my dissertation. I saw his name time to time in the physician and sports medicine, and just found him at a booth at a table, and that's the first time we met. But here's another crazy story, Troy. So I was looking for that kind of position. I did get one interview in Milwaukee, but they were wanting to do outreach.
Right.
I can't do that.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm back and to the drawing board. So I call the NATA hotline. You would use, press 4 for District 4.
Yeah.
Press, and then it would give you this menu for position, sports medicine, clinic, centers. Press 3. I press 3, and Troy, now here's some phone numbers.
Yeah.
And I'm not kidding you. It didn't list the name of the company or the clinic. You know what I mean? Okay, so I call. I didn't know much about area codes those days.
Yeah.
You know? So I call an area code that little did I know I was calling Southern California. And I was talking to the chairperson of the School of Kinesiology at Cal-State Northridge. He was as confused as I was. I was at a clinic. This isn't a clinic? You know, kind of. And guess what? They were an emergency hire.
Yeah.
Second week of the semester, I had called looking for a clinic job, and we got in a little, what? You're finishing your doctorate? Yeah. I have 2 chapters left of my dissertation. So we got a position, and we need to fill it. And guess what? No interview other than that phone call. 3 days later, I'm on a plane, and I'm going to Cal-State Northridge to be the program director, teach a full load of classes, and supposedly going to finish my dissertation so I could graduate. And I got picked up by Maury Hanks. He was assistant athletic trainer at Northridge, and we're now on the 405. I've never been in Southern California in my life.
Yeah.
And I had enough vision still, not a lot, but enough that this freeway was full of cars that you would see on movie scenes, you know?
Yeah.
Wow. And there's the ocean, and there's the mountains, and I was supposed to stay at the chairperson's house for whatever, 3 weeks, until Lauren and Andy sold our mobile home.
Yeah.
And got out there, and Lauren's mom helped her. But his name was Sam Winningham. At that time, Hallmark Hall of Fame films, and they were pretty good little movies.
Yeah.
Mayor Winningham, and she had a lot of, like St. Elmo's.
She was just.
Something.
I was just watching Turner and Hooch with the boys this weekend, and she's in that.
Okay.
She's Tom Hanks' love interest in Turner and Hooch.
Okay.
Yeah. Wow.
So Lauren said, I wonder if like Southern California. I wonder if that's if Dr. Winningham's daughter is Mayor Winningham. Oh, come on, So Maury takes me to Sam Winningham's home. Very nice people. They had me stay in one of the old kids' bedroom. Their kids were older and moved out.
Yeah.
And now we're at the dinner table, and someone walked through the front door, and Sam said, "Mayor," and I didn't register yet.
Yeah.
No, Mayor, how are you? Oh, okay, that's the same name Lauren told me, and he started. What are you working on now? And she's talking about a movie that she's doing where she's got to learn sign language and all this. And now, my God, that's Mayor Winningham. I hadn't even been in California for hours. And I wasn't at home anymore. I felt this isn't Kansas anymore, like they say. And so I'll never forget this. He said, "Well, why don't you show me one of the scenes?" And she kind of sets it up, and she does some sign language, but she's also talking. And Troy, I never will forget the transformation of one human being I saw become another.
Yeah.
I mean, totally a different human being. I'll never forget it.
Wow.
And that's how Southern California started for me. It was all. I felt like a stranger in a foreign land.
Yeah.
For the 6 years I was there. We had some great experiences and great people and all that.
Yeah.
But we were never at home.
Yeah.
We were always visitors.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that a lot of Midwestern folks would probably feel the same way,
Absolutely.
and have felt the same way. I remember Mark Smith, who was our defensive coordinator here with Brady Hoke, when Brady went to San Diego State and took Mark with him, his youngest son, Craig, who's now, I believe, the ops or assistant coach. I think he's actually back out at San Diego State. But when Brady took the job at Michigan, Craig told Mark, he goes, "Well, I'm ready to go back to the Midwest because it's like you're on vacation every day here," and he goes, "I'm tired of being on vacation." So, he wanted to go back and have a normal Midwestern existence, I guess.
Understood. I crisscrossed the country half a dozen more times in interviews. And Troy, so at that point, I in new environments, I had to go sighted guide on someone's elbow. Wasn't with a dog or a cane yet.
Right.
But I had to, and dim lighting was always a problem when I traveled with basketball, baseball. Quick aside, the players, they got it. They knew that I was competent. They knew I was committed.
Right.
They knew I had their back. And guess what? They had my back. And by the time I was a senior, they were carrying my luggage, my kit. Guys, I'm okay. It was such an honoring. I'll never forget it. But the interviews, I had some bad experiences. It's like, how much or how little can Tom see? If this was done in today's environment, I wouldn't have to work the rest of my life. Just sue for the university for everything they had.
Right.
It was that bad of a HR violation,
right.
Equal employment, So that there were some miserable trips.
Yeah.
But finally, I got another interview, just after I got my first guide dog. 2 weeks after I got home from Florida, where I got the dog, down there a month, went back to California. 2 weeks later, I'm back on a plane, which is not a protocol for a brand new dog.
Right.
And interviewed in Muncie. So I had an idea. Okay, this is way too much stress on the dog. And I didn't talk to the guide dog school about this. I went to the vet. I said, this is going to be intense. Is there something I can give the dog? And so Valium. We went to the pharmacy. Blake, Weidner.
Yeah.
Valium prescription. So I gave Blake the Valium on the trip out there.
Yeah.
And I was being met by staff. I think Neil was one of them.
Yeah.
We went to Tony's locker room, of course.
Of course.
And Blake, by the way, here I put the dog on a follow. 2 weeks old now. He didn't follow very well. I'm in the kitchen. I knew no, this isn't working right. I'm in the damn kitchen. So I turn around, and then I think whoever it was retrieved me, and they were okay with it. But the Valium didn't work in calming the dog.
Yeah.
So Troy, I took it. One of us was going to be calm. I took Valium the rest of that.
That explains. Because I remember.
And I'm only teasing. Okay?
No. The thing was that. And I think I've told you this story, but anyway, I remember Mike coming in and saying, okay, we're going to have another teaching position. I was on my way out, but I still wanted to be involved in the process. And I think William Whitehill was the first guy we interviewed. And, it was myself and Dave Weichel and I think Dan Teeney might have been in there and some other younger students in that group that were in there. And I remember walking out of there and nothing against Dr. Whitehill, but we were just like, this guy's not Ball State. We're a little bit more informal, I guess you would say, with that. And I forget, there was somebody else that we interviewed. I can't think of who it was right now. And then it was you. And I distinctly remember you coming in and with Blake, and we're all kind of like, what the heck's going on here?
Yeah.
And we were just, you come in, and instead of being behind the desk, I remember you coming around to the front of the desk. And you introduced yourself and where you were from, and you introduced Blake, and then you were kind of going through some stuff, and then you looked at us all and you said, I want to know what the real shit is going on around here. And that's why I said, when you said you took the Valium, I said, well, that explains what's going on. But you said that, and immediately all of us were like, I remember walking out of the room going, this is the guy. This is the guy that fits here and will get us, even though I'm leaving, he'll get where we're at as students and what we're about. And the combination of Rex, Neil, and Tony, obviously we were probably in between female athletic trainers at the time.
Right.
But this guy gets us. And because I think we told you, like we were struggling with the fact that there were some female issues with our female assistant athletic trainers, and there were things that were going on that may not have been. We were struggling in the aspect of the changeover with Cindy and Mike and all that stuff, and I think we were really looking for somebody just to be there and help us, and that was the one thing that I took away from that. So after that, I can't remember when you got here. I might have been gone already or something like that.
Yeah,
but
fall of '91.
I was. I mean, I didn't worry. It was the fall of '91. So it was basically I was with you for like one school year, with that, and I didn't worry about the direction of way things were going to go and stuff. And then obviously, it's turned into this career that you've obviously moved up the ladder with and stuff. But talk to me a little bit about. I'm checking time here, so talk to me a little bit about your time here at Ball State. I mean, it is obviously so the fall of '91 to 2022,
31 years.
31 years, yeah. I mean, you've definitely had some highs and some lows, and with that, like anybody would in their career, but I'm sitting in your office as a department chair for the School of Kinesiology, which is, still a little bit, I shouldn't say it's far away from being a program director or an assistant professor or whatever at that point, but it's certainly something as you've moved up the line to do those. But just talk to me about your experience. What was most impressionable on you in your time here at Ball State?
Well, I guess the research that I started doing at Northridge, it was expected. At Ball State, it was required.
Yeah.
So I started doing a lot of research in athletic training, primarily education, clinical education, but I was also doing a lot of work with upper respiratory illness, common cold,
right,
and exercise and physical performance, and started to, did some research on athletes, self-reporting colds and their impressions about their performance and so on, and then again kept coming across a name, Elliot Dick at University of Wisconsin-Madison. He had done a lot of the pioneer work on cold transmission and so on, and Antarctica studies.
Yeah.
And he was an older guy, but I called him, cold call, and just I had an idea, and I wanted to study the impact of a cold on physical performance and continuing to work out and train, compete on the severity and duration of the cold. And I remember his expression, "My God, Tom, I've been waiting my whole career for this." And that's a quote. And so I shared with the dean. I had an opportunity to work with a world-class virologist. He paid for me to go, and I stayed with him in his home and his wife for a weekend, and we wrote, and he kind of helped in his part of it, but we framed a National Institutes health grant.
Right.
And I remember at an NATA national meeting in Denver that year, I was in the hallway, sitting on the floor, leaning against the wall. I had a yellow legal pad and a flare tip pen. I could see the contrast between the black and the yellow.
Yeah.
And I was writing this grant in odd moments. I think I took half a day off and worked in my room writing that grant.
Yeah.
And I got that grant, which is impossible. First submission. And so we did research, infected subjects, did all kinds of physical performance kinds of things, vertical jump, VO2 max, duration, severity, every 12 hours we were measuring those kinds of things. And this went on for a number of years. I'm just minding my business. I'm wearing a lab coat into the athletic training lab with a guide dog, and I'm master of ceremonies. I wrote the thing. I've got 8 people, national world class, I should say, exercise immunologist. I had Tom Severe, and as a sports medicine, Mel Ham was also merged in there eventually. Then I had biomechanists, clinical exercise physiologist, the virologist. I had a lot of ologists. And I was team captain.
Yeah.
And sometimes there were naturally acquired colds, recruited. They had to be screened. As soon as they were screened by a physician, which all had to happen by the use of pagers back then.
Yeah.
Blah blah. And that research, you probably heard me say, to this day still stands as the world-class benchmark. No one's ever done it since. And if I would get interview requests, London Times or Berkeley Wellness Newsletter, or New York Times, on and Red Book Magazine.
Right.
To the point where if I had to call him back, I wouldn't. I mean, it was, whoa. I was doing mind my business, doing my work.
Did that kind of come back up a little bit when all this COVID thing broke out?
A little bit, yes. Yeah. A little bit. Good question. So that was very rewarding, that whole research experience. Meanwhile, I was program director for right at 20 years. During all of that, I was playing goal ball during all of that. There's some goal ball stories that have cropped up.
I talked to Jason Eckerly this last week, and he was telling me about a goal ball game where he was. You talked about the transformation of an actress to another character.
Yeah.
He talked about the what he thought was the mild-mannered Dr. Weidner to Tom Weidner, the competitor, and he goes, he was diving on the floor, he was all over the place.
There's no question. I had a switch for the goal ball, and so. But back to the Ball State experience. I became chairperson ultimately after 20 years or so as program director, and not by intent. I was asked if I would consider, because I had learned so much administration through program director that it was skill sets, experience sets that transferred absolutely seamlessly to chair of a school. Although this school is very layered and complex, it's huge, one of the centerpieces on campus. So it's a little larger scale of complexity and moving parts and all of that. But I'll finish 12 years this semester in that role. But stayed involved with GLATA for most of it.
Yeah.
Research assistance committee stuff. But I guess the overall about Ball State would be the people. That is recognized by anybody who comes to interview here. All of the researchers that had come here to collaborate with me would all comment on the quality of the people here.
Yeah.
And so that was absolutely centerpiece to my experience. I always talk about there's a person behind a professional, and you can't separate the two. They're just co-integrated, and it's the person factors that often lead the professional, and not the other way around. So those person factors were always just top drawer people.
Yeah.
And they were, of course, no surprise, great professionals as well. So that would be my overall experience.
Yeah, I think that I think that's why a lot of people were drawn or attracted here. I mean, I know I was the first time that I came to visit here, and I was coming here regardless, but the one thing that I noticed is that these were real people. I guess in this day and age you would say authentic.
Right.
They were real people, and like you really put it eloquently in the aspect of there is a person behind a professional. The professional is what a lot of us see. The person, if we're lucky enough, is who we get to know, and that's what kind of made all this for me very special. Is that I've gotten to know some great people at Ball State, and learn to look towards that, interactions with other professionals to try to know the person behind that too. And in fact, I'm getting ready to go down and meet our new head basketball coach right after we do this. And I'm as much as I'm intrigued about the basketball side of things, I'm more intrigued about him as a person, because I want to know if this fits kind of what this is about here. And I think it will. I think it'll be fine. But that's the one thing I can say is that to the point where I can remember a time my senior year, and I was at the end of my senior year, but it was Rex, Neil, and Tony on my front porch on my house at Rex Street with a case of beer, and we were dissecting the day. I think we were doing like Mac Track Championships. It's the last day of Mac Track Championships or something. But we were people then, not professionals. Right. And fortunately, that friendship, those friendships have carried on an extremely long time. Right. And so I think that's you. Right. You really summed it up right there. That's an awesome statement.
Well, thank you, Troy. I know when I mentor, guide faculty that they've gotten crosswise in a situation, they're behind it and maybe where they should be in terms of toward tenure and promotion or whatever it is.
Yeah.
More often than not, it's person factors that is their nemesis, and so I'll claim it. I think because what I've noticed is as maybe a person factor here at work is probably the same thing people at maybe their churches are noticing, at home they're noticing. It's the same.
Right.
So I think you need to work on, and it's an ex-person factor, not the symptoms of the professional. You need to write more. No, there's something about why they're not writing enough, or don't have enough confidence or whatever. That's the person.
Yeah.
So I'll work with that, and that works much better.
Yeah. Probably your secretary telling you it's about 10:25, so she might be.
Sorry
yeah.
for the
No, it's okay.
Let it rain.
Well, we're gonna wrap this up here because as the phone rings, we're gonna wrap it up. But what is Dr. Tom Weidner? What's the future hold for Dr. Tom Weidner right now?
That's a good question. So, just to share that retirement, it's not all we yet. Yeah. I've had my age cohort friends retire, and I why are you so damn stressed out?
Yeah.
Well, now I get it. It's a life change event, Troy.
Yeah.
And it's like getting married. I think I know that's going to be. No, you have no idea what it's going to be like till you're married. Or having your first baby. Yeah, I think, no, you have no idea. Retirement's the same level of life change event. You really have no idea till you walk across that line. So yeah, right now there's kind of sorting out, transition kinds of things. But what I have picked up now into 4 years as a new hobby and passion is playing music. So I play percussion instruments, djembe, drums, all kinds of tambourines, cabasas, washboard type stuff, shakers, different kinds, and I play on my porch, which we had redone, so it's all glass at each end, glass skylights, but wood ceiling. So it's like a recording studio in there. It's phenomenal.
Yeah.
And so I play in there. I've got a sound system that's high quality, and what I can do is I can play a track through my phone, and it plays into my Bose amplifier. And then I've got mic set up, so when I play my music instruments, I'm playing in the track. I'm not playing along with it.
Yeah.
I'm in it.
Yeah.
And so I tease. I call my my porch. I call it the Tambourine Lounge. And I call the Bose. I call it the Bose House Band.
Yeah.
So the Bose House Band kicks it every time.
Yeah, every time.
Oh, are they good? House band.
So does this mean that we might potentially see you in some band somewhere?
Well,
I mean,
I don't know. I do play at least 15 hours a week for into 4 years now, and I've all of it by self-study, enough reps, 15 hours a week for into 4 years. You pick up on nuance and stuff. But retirement, Troy, I never had any music education.
Yeah.
I wanted and I wanted to learn that. And music is infinity.
Yeah.
So there's rhythms and there's classes, online classes you can take.
Yeah.
Just by clapping, the clapping rhythms, different timing. Oh my God! I took 2 of them. There's 12 in this video program that I can purchase and participate in. The first 2 are complimentary. I mean, I get stomach aches after each one of them. They're so hard, and that's just the baby stuff.
Yeah.
So that will all transition to performing, playing the music.
Yeah. Sounds like I need to get you hooked into Greg Pyle's band, the 5 Speeds. Have you?
Oh no, I didn't know that.
Oh yeah,
wow.
He's got a band. They all play classic. It's classic rock.
See, I play all kinds of genres, 9, 10 different kinds. And they take different instrumentation. They take different style or approach. But certainly the rock and roll is still on the top of the list.
Yeah.
So that I will spend a lot of time doing that, and I am looking forward to decompressing and creating a new equilibrium for my health, mental, physical, emotional, and where I land in that new equilibrium, remains to be seen.
Yeah. But
I do know I'm looking forward, as crazy as this seems. I haven't run errands with Lauren, I don't know when. And if I do, I've got a damn laptop on my lap. She goes in, and I got the umbilical cord to work. Right. And so it's always there. And pervasive. I can't wait to just be in the moment of running errands with Lauren. I mean, it sounds ridiculous, but I am not kidding you. I am looking forward to that. And I do know when retirees come back, because I've watched it over the years in the locker room. I've listened to different conversations of different age cohorts, including those that are retiring, the retired, and they come back. Sometimes it takes a bit, but Troy, every time, they got this zen about them. They're so calm. And this is the person who is like me, just go. And now they got this zen, almost glowing. And, that's cool. That's healthy, and so whatever.
That's awesome. No, it's you've always had these adventures that you've been on. That's what I call them, journeys, adventures, whatever, in your lifetime, and you're about to shift into another kind of totally different adventure, but one that you will probably excel at, and hopefully have a lot of fun at and doing that with that. And I think that's what we all try to.
It's my new job. Seriously, I gotta have a job.
Right? Exactly.
So my new job is not to screw up retirement. Make it work on whatever I need to.
And you're still riding your bike, right?
Still, both my captains are kind of on the sideline right now, but still an avid tandem cyclist. They still lift weights a couple of times a week at least for decades now. I'm still on the treadmill, still on the so I'll still work out, but there'll be walks and hikes with Lauren and that kind of stuff. I'll but as I say, my new job is
not to screw up.
Not only for me, but for Lauren. Who supported this craziness. And I don't want to screw up her retirement.
Right, and hopefully you get a chance to reconnect with some folks that again, if you've been so busy and they've been so busy that you haven't had a chance to connect with them in a while, and hopefully,
absolutely.
I think of one person in particular, but
Yeah, and my kids know this well. Dad's going to give you a minute on the phone. I hate the phone. I just always feel like, just idle conversation. Let's put it that way, which occurs most often on the phone. Yeah, I want to let that go. And if one of the girls wants to talk for half an hour, then I'll talk for half an hour.
Yeah.
But now they know you've got 5 minutes. They know that.
Yeah.
They talk about it. That's it. And
Well,
I want to change that.
Yeah, and I appreciate it. We've been talking for now an hour and 13 minutes. There we go on this recorder. So I appreciate the fact that you've given me an hour and 13 minutes. It's been awesome. So
thank you.
Thank
Likewise, Troy.
Yeah, and who knows? Maybe we might have to have you on with a couple of guests to kind of hash out some old times too. That would be awesome as well.
I'll look forward to. I give a few hours.
Yeah, Well, hopefully you'll have some time to do that. Or maybe on your porch. That would even be good too.
We can have like bit of tambourine lounge time.
Exactly.
Kind of merge into happy hour. We'll get the house band out.
Exactly. That would be awesome. Well, thanks for being on the podcast, and we look forward to seeing what your new adventures are going to be here after retirement, and like I said, hopefully we get a chance to have another conversation with you again. So
I look forward to it. Troy, thank you.
Yeah. So we've gone off the roll with Dr. Tom Weidner.
I want to say thanks to Dr. Weidner for coming on the podcast today. It was awesome to spend some time with him. It's been a while for me, and his time is precious. So for him to carve out over an hour to spend time doing a podcast today was awesome. So make sure that you're subscribing to us or following us on your favorite podcast platform. That would be great. If you have any feedback, please send it back to me at offtherollpodcast@gmail.com. Or reach out to me. If you got my cell phone number, you can text me. A lot of you guys have that already, so not a big deal. Also, I want to remind everybody that April 5th is One Ball State Day. That's when it's a crowdfunding opportunity, fundraising for the university. And obviously, if you have some spare cash, which is not a lot right now in this day and age for athletic trainers or anybody else for that matter, our CVC account 880, which is the Ring of Honor Endowed Fund, is where you would want to drop that donation. You can get on the Ball State Foundation website and pull that up and make your donation. Any amount would be greatly appreciated. So if you can do that, it's great. If you can't, we all understand. So thanks for listening to the podcast and have a great day.